The jungle stank of gunpowder and death. The air was thick with smoke that clung to the skin like sweat. Private Eli McCarthy, a corn-fed Iowa farm boy turned Marine, pressed his back against a scorched palm trunk, clutching his M1 rifle as if it were a lifeline. His heart pounded in his chest, not from fear alone, but from the heavy silence that followed hours of chaos. The Japanese attack had split his platoon. Mortars fell like rain, and when the smoke cleared, he was alone, or so he thought. Then he heard it, a whisper, low and steady, in a language that sounded like wind over stone. Eli swung his rifle around, finger tightening on the trigger. From the shadow of a broken banyan tree stepped another Marine. Smaller, darker, his face painted with ash and blood. Around his neck hung a radio unit, still humming faintly. His uniform bore the name Begay. "Friend," the man said quietly, raising his hands. His English was rough, his tone calm. "Marine. Same side." Eli nodded, lowering his rifle slightly. "You're one of those code talkers, ain't you?" Begay gave a slow, careful smile. "Navajo," he said. "Radio's dead. Enemy close." A sharp rustle in the brush made both men drop low. Voices, Japanese, coming from the ravine below. They were cut off. No map, no food, and no orders. Eli glanced at Begay. "Guess it's just us, then." Begay's dark eyes met his. "Then we live together." And just like that, two strangers, one from the red earth of Arizona, the other from the green plains of Iowa, began a fight not just for survival, but for trust. The jungle didn't sleep that night. Every leaf seemed to whisper. Every insect's cry felt like a warning. Eli and Begay crawled through the undergrowth, moving by instinct more than sight. The moon hung low, a pale coin behind drifting clouds, its light spilling across the broken ridges of Saipan. Eli had hunted deer in the woods back home, but this was different. The air was too thick, the noises too strange. He couldn't tell if the rustling behind them was a lizard or a man with a bayonet. Begay moved ahead silently, like a shadow that breathed. Every so often, he'd raise his hand. 2 fingers, a quick gesture, and Eli would freeze. They found a shallow stream and drank greedily. The water tasted like metal, but it was cold. Begay knelt and scooped up a handful of mud, smearing it across his uniform. "Hide smell," he whispered. Eli followed, unsure but willing. "You talk funny," Eli muttered, trying to lighten the mood. Begay's lips twitched. "So do you." For a moment, they both chuckled. 2 men from worlds apart, sharing a small laugh under the same foreign moon. Then Begay's head snapped toward the trees. He raised his hand sharply. Silence. From the distance came the clink of metal, gear. Soldiers. The Japanese were fanning out, searching. Eli's stomach twisted. Begay pulled out a small piece of wire and a grenade. He set a trap near the stream's edge, his hands quick and steady. "We go up," he said, pointing toward the ridgeline. Eli followed without question. Behind them, the jungle held its breath. A few minutes later, a sharp explosion ripped through the night, followed by shouting in Japanese. Eli glanced back at the smoke curling through the palms. "Guess that's our good morning," he muttered. Begay only nodded. Many mornings still to come. Dawn bled slowly over the ridgeline, turning the jungle from shadow to gold. Smoke from the trap still lingered below, mixing with the damp air. Eli and Begay crouched behind a tangle of ferns, watching through the mist as Japanese soldiers combed the valley. Their shouts rose and fell like angry waves. Eli wiped sweat from his brow, his fingers trembling slightly. "You think they know where we are?" he whispered. Begay shook his head, his eyes steady. "They guess. Not know. We move before sun gets high." He pulled out a small compass, its glass cracked but working, and traced a line in the dirt. "Our men, north, maybe 5 miles. Hardland. Many patrols." Eli studied the crude map. "You think we can make it?" "Can," Begay said simply. "Must." They began climbing. The ridge was steep and jagged, roots twisting like serpents underfoot. Eli's boots slipped in the mud, his pack dragging him down. Each breath burned in his chest. Begay climbed ahead, light as a cat, occasionally glancing back to make sure the farm boy was still behind. When they reached the top, the island opened before them, an endless stretch of green and smoke, the ocean flashing in the distance. For a moment, it was almost beautiful. Then came the sound, a faint crack, followed by the hiss of a bullet snapping past Eli's ear. He threw himself flat, mud splashing his face. "Sniper," he shouted. Begay was already rolling behind a rock, scanning the tree-line. "One man," he murmured. "There." Eli followed his gaze and spotted a glint, metal in the sunlight. He raised his rifle, exhaled, and squeezed the trigger. The jungle echoed with a single shot. Silence. Begay looked at him, nodded once. "Good aim, Iowa." Eli managed a grin. "Good eyes, Navajo." For the first time, trust began to grow between them. Small, fragile, but real. By midday, the heat was merciless. The jungle steamed, turning every breath into a swallow of boiling air. Eli's shirt clung to his back, and his rifle felt twice as heavy. They moved carefully along the ridge, stepping where Begay stepped, trusting his quiet instincts more than his own tired senses. Below them stretched a ravaged valley, burned-out palms, wrecked tanks, and the charred remains of a small village. The smell hit them first, sour and heavy. Flies gathered over everything that once lived. Eli paused, his jaw tight. "Lord," he muttered under his breath. "What happened here?" Begay's expression didn't change. "War," he said softly. "Same thing happened near my home. Old men, children, no different." They picked their way down into the ruins, stepping over splintered bamboo and cracked helmets. Eli stopped by a broken photograph half buried in the dirt, a Japanese family smiling in front of their home. He wiped the dust from the glass, feeling something twist deep in his chest. "They had lives too," he murmured. Begay nodded. "Everyone does, until war takes it." A rustle broke their moment. Both men dropped low. From behind a collapsed hut, a figure stumbled forward, a young Japanese soldier, barely more than a boy, clutching his stomach. His rifle hung uselessly at his side. Eli raised his gun, but Begay held up a hand. "Wait." The boy looked at them with wide, glassy eyes, muttered something in his language, and fell face first into the mud, dead before he hit the ground. For a long time, neither Marine spoke. The buzzing of flies filled the silence. Finally, Eli whispered, "I guess we ain't the only ones lost." Begay's voice was quiet, almost tender. "In war, everyone is lost. Some just don't know it yet." They buried the boy beneath a palm trunk and kept moving north. The jungle swallowed them again, leaving only the sound of distant waves. By the time the sun began to fall, the jungle had turned to gold and shadow. Every sound felt closer, sharper, a twig snapping, a bird taking flight, the endless whisper of water ahead. Begay led Eli toward the sound, crouching low until they reached the edge of a narrow river winding like a black snake through the trees. "We cross here," Begay said, testing the water with his boot. Quiet, no splash. Eli looked at the dark water and frowned. "You sure it's safe?" Begay's mouth twitched. "Nothing's safe in war. Only choices." They stepped into the current. It was cold, biting at their legs, carrying the smell of moss and decay. The deeper they went, the quieter the jungle became, as if the whole island was holding its breath. Halfway across, Begay froze. "What is it?" Eli whispered. Begay didn't answer. He slowly pointed downstream. Floating there, half submerged, was a helmet. Then another. And then bodies. American uniforms, swollen and pale, drifting like ghosts. Eli's stomach turned. "Our boys. Dead too, maybe 3 days," Begay said quietly. "Patrol gone wrong." He glanced at the tree line. "Enemy near. We must go." They reached the opposite bank and crawled into the undergrowth. Begay found one of the dead soldiers' packs washed ashore. Inside, a canteen, a map, and a few rations. He handed the food to Eli. "Eat. You need strength." Eli hesitated. "What about you?" "I ate yesterday." Eli tore the ration in half and handed it back. "We both eat. That's how this works." Begay's dark eyes met his. For a moment, he looked almost surprised, then nodded slowly. "You learn fast, Iowa." Night fell quick and heavy. As the river whispered behind them, they huddled in the dark, 2 men against the endless jungle. And somewhere out there, the enemy searched, closer than either of them knew. The next morning broke with a soft rain, the kind that dripped from the leaves like tears. Eli woke to the sound of Begay whispering into his damaged radio, trying to coax life from it. Static hissed and died. He shook his head. "Still nothing," he muttered. "Need new battery. Maybe from dead camp ahead." "Dead camp?" Eli asked, rubbing his eyes. Begay pointed toward the hills. "American outpost." Hit 3 nights ago. If lucky, maybe one alive. Maybe supplies. They packed up quickly and moved along the river until they found where it split, one branch thick with red clay. Red Creek, Begay said. Good place for trap. Enemy often patrol water. Eli nodded, scanning the dense growth. You think they'll come? They always come. They hid among the roots, setting 2 grenades on a tripwire across the trail. Hours passed in thick silence. Then, faint footsteps. Voices in Japanese. A squad of 6, rifles ready, moving along the creek. Begay signaled. Wait. The first soldier passed the wire. Then the second. A click, barely audible. The explosion ripped through the jungle like thunder. Mud and leaves flew skyward. Screams followed. Eli fired, quick and steady. Begay's rifle cracked beside him. When the smoke cleared, 3 men were down. The others fled into the trees. Eli's hands shook as he reloaded. They'll bring more, he said. Yes, Begay replied calmly. So we go before the next wave. They stripped what they could, ammunition, a compass, and miraculously, a chocolate bar still dry. Begay handed it to Eli, who laughed despite himself. As they vanished deeper into the jungle, rain began again, washing away the blood, the footprints, and any trace of the 2 ghosts who had fought there. But the enemy had heard. The hunt had truly begun. The jungle had changed. It no longer whispered, it growled. Every branch snapped like a warning. Every shadow moved with purpose. Begay and Eli could feel it. The Japanese patrols were closing in. The air itself seemed to tighten around them. They ran low through the brush, feet silent on the damp soil. Begay led, his movements smooth and instinctive, every sense alert. Eli followed close, heart pounding, his rifle heavy but ready. Behind them came the faint echo of shouts, distant, but not distant enough. They're tracking us, Eli hissed. How? Begay pointed to the ground. Blood. From your arm. Eli glanced down. A thin red line ran from a scratch he hadn't noticed. Hell, he muttered, wrapping it quickly with his bandana. Won't happen again. Good, Begay said simply. Then his head turned sharply. Down. They dropped as a burst of gunfire shredded the leaves above. The sound tore through the jungle, deafening, violent. Bullets smacked into tree trunks, sending splinters flying. Begay rolled to the side, firing back once, twice, short, controlled bursts. Eli crawled behind a fallen log, breath ragged. How many? Maybe 10. Moving fast. Eli's eyes darted toward the slope ahead, a narrow ravine filled with ferns and mist. We could lose them in there. Begay studied it, then nodded. Go. I cover. Eli hesitated only a second. Not leaving you. Begay gave a small, almost proud smile. Then we both go. They sprinted into the ravine, sliding down the mud as gunfire echoed above. The smell of wet earth filled their lungs. When they reached the bottom, they pressed themselves against the rocks, silent. The voices passed overhead, growing fainter. For now, they were ghosts again, unseen, unheard, alive. But Begay's face was tight. They know we head north. Next time, they bring dogs. Eli's stomach dropped. Then we'd better move faster. By the next morning, the jungle was alive with sound. Not birds or insects, but the deep, guttural barks of dogs. Begay had been right. The Japanese had unleashed their hounds. The sound echoed through the trees, steady and relentless, like drums of pursuit. Eli and Begay moved through a tangle of vines, soaked to the bone. Every step was a battle, the mud sucking at their boots, the roots twisting their ankles. Eli's breath came ragged. How far do we go before they catch up? As far as we must, Begay said calmly, scanning the tree-line. But we can turn the land against them. He knelt beside a patch of wet ground, scooping up handfuls of pungent jungle leaves and crushing them into the mud. Boar scent, he explained. Dogs follow wrong trail. Eli helped smear the mixture along a false path leading east. The smell was strong, bitter, wild. You sure this'll work? Begay gave a rare, quick grin. Worked on wolves in Navajo land. Should work here. They doubled back west, crawling through a stream to mask their scent. But soon, faint barking echoed again, closer this time. Eli's pulse quickened. They're still coming. Begay stopped suddenly. Up there, a dead tree had fallen across a shallow ravine, forming a bridge of sorts. They climbed, balancing carefully as the dogs burst into view below. Lean, tan creatures snapping at the air, handlers shouting commands. Begay tossed a grenade into the underbrush. Cover your ears. The explosion shattered the morning. Smoke rolled through the ravine, and the barks turned to screams. Eli watched in awe. You're one hell of a tactician, Begay. Begay's face was unreadable. War teaches all men the same lessons. Some just listen faster. They didn't wait to see what was left behind. The hounds were silent now, but the men wouldn't be far behind. And for the first time, Eli began to realize they weren't just surviving anymore. They were fighting back. By late afternoon, the rain had thinned to a steady drizzle, dripping from the canopy like slow tears. The air smelled of rust and salt. Eli and Begay followed a faint trail north, the ground scarred with old footprints and wheel tracks. The path led them to a clearing, quiet, too quiet. A tattered American flag hung limply from a shattered pole. Around it, the remains of a small camp sprawled, sandbags torn open, helmets scattered, fires long dead. The flies had already claimed the place. Eli stopped at the edge, rifle ready. This the outpost you mentioned? Begay nodded once. Yes, our people. Code unit. Eli's throat tightened. He stepped carefully among the fallen. Uniforms stained and stiff, faces unrecognizable. He crouched beside a body and gently removed its dog tags. Corporal Yazzie, another Navajo name. Begay stood motionless. His jaw was tight, his hands trembling ever so slightly. Eli didn't speak. There was nothing to say. Finally, Begay knelt beside one of the corpses and retrieved a small satchel. Inside, wrapped in a bloodstained cloth, was a radio battery. He kept it safe, Begay murmured. Even dying. He wiped it clean and slid it into his pack. Then, to Eli's surprise, he began to hum softly. A low, haunting tune. A prayer, maybe. The melody rose and fell like wind through canyons. Eli bowed his head, feeling the weight of the moment. We'll make it out, Begay. For them. Begay looked up, eyes hard but glimmering. We already carry them. They walk with us now. As they prepared to leave, Eli noticed something else. Tracks leading away from the camp. Fresh ones. Boots. American issue. Someone lived, he whispered. Begay turned toward the forest. Or someone ran. Either way, the trail ahead was alive again, and they had no choice but to follow it. The tracks were fresh, deep in the mud, spaced unevenly, like a man half running, half stumbling. Eli crouched low, tracing them with a finger. He's hurt, he murmured. Maybe scared. Begay's eyes swept the dense green ahead. Or bait, he replied quietly. Enemy clever. Use fear to pull us in. Still, they followed. The air was thick with humidity, their uniforms soaked and heavy. Birds called somewhere above, then fell silent again, a bad sign. After an hour, they found him. A Marine, maybe in his 30s, slumped against a rock. His helmet lay beside him, his arm wrapped in a bloodied bandage. When he saw them, he flinched, raising his pistol with shaking hands. Easy, Eli said quickly, stepping forward. We're Americans. The man's eyes darted between them. Prove it. Begay took a slow breath. We fight for the Corps. Code Talker Unit. At that, the man's shoulders sagged. He lowered the pistol. Sergeant Loudon. Charlie Company. Thought I was the last one. Eli handed him a canteen. Not yet, Sarge. Loudon drank greedily, then looked toward the jungle. You boys stirred up a hornet's nest. Whole Japanese platoons sweeping north. They're not just searching, they're hunting code talkers. Begay's face hardened. They want what we carry. Loudon nodded grimly. They intercepted part of your code. They think one of you still has the full cipher key. Eli frowned. You mean the Navajo code words? Loudon's eyes flicked to Begay, sharp and knowing. Yeah, and they'll kill anyone who stands between them and that man. For the first time, Eli looked at Begay differently, not just as a partner, but as a target the enemy would stop at nothing to find. Begay noticed the look, but said nothing. He simply adjusted his radio pack and started walking. Then we keep moving. The war hasn't finished with us yet. They camped that night under a rock ledge, a small fire flickering between them. The rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy and still. Sergeant Loudon sat apart, cleaning his sidearm, eyes distant and cold. Eli tried to rest, but something about the man made his skin crawl. Begay sat cross-legged, testing the new battery in his radio. The soft hiss of static filled the silence, the sweetest sound Eli had heard in days. Then, faintly, a voice broke through. Able Company, Retreat to Sector 9. Repeat, Sector 9. Begay leaned close, adjusting the dial. We can reach them, he whispered. American lines, maybe 2 days north. Eli grinned. 2 days? Hell, we might make it out of this alive. But Loudon's reaction was strange. He didn't smile. He just stared into the fire, jaw tight. Sector 9's crawling with Japs. That message could be a trap. Begay studied him carefully. You sure, Sergeant? Been out here longer than either of you, Loudon muttered. Seen what they do? They mimic our transmissions. Lure us in. Eli frowned. Then what's your plan? Sit here and wait. Loudon's gaze flicked between them. No, we move west instead, toward the caves. I know a way off this ridge. Begay shook his head. Too dangerous. We follow radio. That's the way home. The tension thickened like smoke. The jungle hummed beyond the firelight. Eli sensed something cracking between them, not from fear, but mistrust. When Loudon finally turned in, Begay whispered softly in Navajo, his tone low and grave. Eli caught only one word: lying. He didn't ask what it meant. Deep down, he already knew. And as the night grew darker, Eli lay awake, finger on his trigger, listening, not to the jungle this time, but to the quiet breathing of two men who might not both see morning. The first drops came before dawn, fat, heavy, and cold. Within minutes, the sky opened, unleashing a wall of rain that hammered the jungle. The fire hissed out. Thunder rolled across the island like artillery fire. Eli jolted awake, reaching for his rifle. Loudon was already on his feet, pack slung, eyes sharp. We move now, he shouted over the roar. The storm will cover our tracks. Begay hesitated. We wait. Radio call again soon. Might get confirmation. But Loudon wasn't listening. You want to die in this hole, be my guest. I'm not staying for another ambush. Eli looked between them. Begay's calm against Loudon's fury, two walls about to crash. Lightning split the sky, revealing their faces. One carved in stone, the other burning with something darker than fear. Sergeant, Eli said carefully, Begay's gotten us this far. Maybe we trust him. Loudon's head snapped toward him. Trust him? A man talking in code no one can read. He jabbed a finger at Begay. For all we know, he's sending our position to the Japs right now. Eli stepped forward. That's enough. Begay said nothing, just stood, rain dripping from his hair. Then, slowly, he removed the radio from his back and set it on the ground. Take it, he said quietly. If you think it lies, then you carry it. The storm seemed to hold its breath. Loudon's hand hovered near his pistol. For a heartbeat, Eli thought he might actually draw. Then, gunfire. Not from them, but from the trees. Bullets tore through the leaves, snapping branches. Ambush, Eli shouted. They dove for cover. The storm turned the jungle into chaos. Mud, rain, and fire. Loudon fired wildly. Begay moved like a ghost, every shot precise. When it was over, 2 enemy soldiers lay dead. The others fled into the sheets of rain. Eli looked around. Loudon. No answer. Only the jungle. And the radio, half buried in the mud, still hissing with static. The storm had passed, leaving behind a jungle soaked and steaming. Mist curled around the trees like smoke from a dying fire. Eli and Begay searched in silence, calling softly, rifles raised. No sign of Loudon. Only footprints, 3 sets heading downhill, then 2 returning. The third disappeared into the brush. Eli crouched, studying the mud. He ran, he said quietly. Begay nodded once. Took something. He pointed to the empty space on his back where the radio had been. The battery is gone. Eli's stomach sank. You think he left us, Begay finished. Or worse. They moved slowly, following the broken branches and bent ferns. After an hour, they found it. A small clearing littered with shell casings, and near the center, a blood trail. It led to a fallen tree where something metal glinted in the sunlight. Loudon's pistol. Eli picked it up, turning it in his hand. Still warm from the sun, 1 round missing. He fired once, Eli murmured. At who? Begay's expression darkened. At what? From deeper in the forest came a faint groan. They found Loudon slumped against a boulder, pale and shaking. Blood seeped from his shoulder. The radio sat beside him, cracked and useless. They were waiting, he gasped. I thought I could reach command. Eli knelt beside him, pressing a bandage to the wound. You're lucky to be alive. Loudon laughed weakly. Lucky? Not sure about that. They know about the code now. They said they have a man who understands some of it. Begay's eyes sharpened. Impossible. Loudon grabbed his sleeve. He's not Japanese. He's American. Silence. Only the wind moved through the trees. Eli and Begay exchanged a long look. Disbelief, then something colder. Betrayal had a new face now, and it wasn't just one man. Loudon drifted in and out of consciousness as Begay and Eli built a small shelter from palm fronds. The jungle was quiet again. Too quiet. No birds, no wind, only the faint hum of insects. Eli stared at the wounded man. You're sure he said that? An American helping the Japanese? Loudon nodded weakly. He was with them, spoke English. Said he'd cracked part of the code. They called him Sensei. I saw his face, blonde hair, officer's uniform. Begay's jaw tightened. Some captured, some turned traitor. His voice was low, hard as flint. If they break our words, they break the war. Eli frowned. But the code, it's unbreakable, right? Begay met his eyes. Was. Until now. He rose, stepping into the light. The look in his face had changed, no longer just survival. Now it was purpose. He turned back to Loudon. Where? The sergeant's breathing rattled. Caves, North Ridge. Big guns, radios. Whole command post. Begay nodded slowly. We go there. Eli blinked. Begay, hold up. That's suicide. You're talking about walking straight into their lines. Begay's voice didn't waver. If enemy learned full code, more Americans die. My brothers. Yours. We end it here. Eli looked at the blood on Loudon's uniform, at the broken radio, at the endless green stretching before them. Then he sighed, adjusting his helmet. Guess I'm coming too. Somebody's got to keep you from getting killed. For the first time in days, Begay's lips curved into a small smile. You talk much, Iowa. Yeah, Eli said, gripping his rifle. And I shoot straight. The two men set out, the mist swallowing them whole. Behind them, Loudon watched, eyes glassy, guilt and relief fighting in his face. He whispered something that the rain carried away, and then he was gone. Night fell like ink over the jungle. The moon hung low, veiled behind clouds, turning the world into shades of gray and whisper. Begay and Eli moved silently, faces blackened with mud, every step deliberate. The sound of waves crashed somewhere below, a reminder that Saipan was an island of death surrounded by beauty. From a ridge above, they saw it, the enemy encampment. Dozens of tents, 2 searchlights sweeping the treetops, and in the center, a dugout bunker wired with radio antennas. The caves Loudon had spoken of were there too, gaping black mouths in the rock. Eli exhaled. You weren't kidding. Whole damn company down there. Begay nodded. Command post. That's where the traitor hides. They waited for the patrol to pass, then slipped down through the undergrowth. Every sound mattered. The buzz of insects, the crunch of a twig. Eli's heart thumped like a drum. They reached the edge of the camp, crouching behind a half-buried supply crate. Inside the nearest tent, voices murmured in English and Japanese. Eli risked a glance through a tear in the canvas and froze. A man stood over a map, tall, blonde, his face thin and sharp. He wore an American officer's jacket with the insignia stripped off. The Japanese captain beside him listened as he pointed at coordinates. The Navajo words matched these signals, the man said. They call artillery using them. I can translate most now. Begay's hand tightened on his rifle. His whisper was pure steel. He steals our sacred words. Eli's stomach turned. We can't take them all, he whispered. No, Begay said, eyes fixed on the blonde man. But we take him. The plan formed between them without a word. When the next flare burst over the sea, they moved, ghosts among men, 2 shadows cutting into the heart of the enemy's fire. The flare faded, leaving the camp in momentary blindness. That was their window. Begay moved first, silent, fluid, his knife glinting faintly as he slipped behind the nearest guard. A muffled grunt, a soft thud, and the man was gone. Eli followed, adrenaline pounding through him. The smell of oil, sweat, and damp earth filled the air. They crept toward the radio bunker where the blonde officer worked. Inside, Japanese soldiers stood watch, 2 by the door, rifles slung. Begay tapped Eli's arm, then motioned toward a stack of fuel drums near the entrance. The plan was simple: create chaos, grab the traitor, and disappear before the camp turned into hell. Eli unscrewed the top of one drum. the stench of gasoline burning his nostrils. He jammed a rag into it and struck a match. For a heartbeat, the flame flickered small and harmless, then caught, bright and hungry. They ducked behind a jeep just as the explosion tore through the night. Fire rolled across the camp, shouts rising like thunder. The sky turned orange. Now, Begay barked. They stormed the bunker. One guard turned, too slow. Eli fired, the crack echoing against the rock walls. Begay lunged for the officer, slamming him against the table. Papers and maps scattered. The man looked at him with cold amusement. "You must be Begay," he said. His accent was American, smooth and sharp. "You're famous among them. The last real code talker." Begay's grip tightened. "You shame your people." "People?" the man sneered. "I serve knowledge. The code is power, and power belongs to whoever understands it." Before Begay could respond, gunfire ripped through the tent. The Japanese were regrouping. Eli grabbed the officer's arm. "We gotta move." They dragged him out through the smoke toward the caves. Flames chased them, and the jungle roared as if alive, a living witness to betrayal, fury, and survival. The caves swallowed them whole, dark, echoing, alive with the drip of unseen water. The fire outside painted the entrance red, but inside, it was pure blackness. Eli's breath came fast, his hands slick on his rifle. Behind them, distant shouts grew louder. They shoved the traitor against the wall. Begay knelt before him, knife glinting faintly in the dim light. "Who taught you the words?" The man smirked, unfazed. "You Navajo think your language is sacred, but every code can be learned, every secret can be bought. I studied with the linguists who created it, before they sent you men to die for it." Begay's face was carved from stone. "You lie." "Do I?" The officer leaned forward. "The Corps used your people, promised honor, gave graves instead, and now you're still fighting for them." Eli stepped between them. "Shut up," he growled. "You don't get to talk about honor." The traitor laughed softly. "Honor? You think they'll remember you, farm boy? You'll be a name on a list. But me? I'll be the man who unlocked the unbreakable code." Begay's eyes burned like coals. "You misunderstand, white man. The words are not just code. They are prayers. They live." Something in his tone silenced even the traitor. For a long moment, only the sound of rain filled the cave. Then, quietly, Begay began to speak, not English, not code, but Navajo. Each word low, rhythmic, ancient. It wasn't a threat. It was something older, a warning. Eli felt the hairs on his arms rise. The air itself seemed to thicken. Even the traitor's smirk faltered. Begay stood. "The words you stole will never speak for you." Then came the rumble of boots outside, enemy soldiers closing in. Eli checked his rifle, jaw tight. "Guess the prayer worked. We've got company." Begay nodded. "Then we make them listen." The first shots echoed like thunderclaps in the narrow cave. Sparks jumped from the stone walls as bullets ricocheted into darkness. Eli and Begay dropped low, the traitor pinned behind them, shouting something in both English and Japanese. Begay returned fire, muzzle flashes painting his face gold. The confined space turned every sound into a roar. Eli crawled to a boulder, reloaded, and fired toward the cave mouth, where silhouettes flickered in the firelight. "They're pushing in," Eli yelled. "Let them." Begay replied, calm even as chaos raged. He reached into his pack and pulled out 2 grenades, their metal slick with mud. He handed one to Eli. "When they come close, count to 3. Eli nodded, heart hammering. The footsteps grew louder, boots scraping stone, voices shouting orders. He saw their shadows lengthen, rifles raised. 1, 2. The grenades went off together, shaking the earth. The cave filled with dust and smoke. Screams echoed briefly, then silence. Eli coughed, waving away the haze. "That buy us time." "Little," Begay said, "but enough." He turned to the traitor, who was pale now, coughing blood. "Your words die here." The man laughed weakly. "You can kill me, Navajo, but you can't kill the knowledge. It's written." A sharp crack cut him off. His body slumped forward, eyes glassy. Begay's pistol smoked in his hand. Written nowhere now. Eli swallowed hard. He'd seen death before, but something about that act felt different. Not anger, not revenge. Justice. The air grew hotter. Smoke rolled deeper into the cave. Begay pointed toward a narrow tunnel at the back. "We go?" "Now." They ran, bent low, as the fire outside crept closer. The cave walls trembled, stones falling like rain. Behind them, the enemy shouted, regrouping. And then, daylight ahead. Freedom. Eli stumbled into the open air, gasping, while Begay turned back once, whispering something in Navajo, a farewell to the dead. The jungle had taken another secret, and 2 ghosts walked out alive. The sky had turned red. Smoke rose from the jungle like dark flags, blotting out the sun. The battle for Saipan raged all around, artillery in the distance, machine guns hammering from the hills. Begay and Eli stumbled through the tall grass, half blind from the smoke, ears ringing from the cave explosion behind them. Eli wiped soot from his face. You sure we're going the right way? Begay squinted toward the horizon. North, toward our lines. But the war moves faster than we do. They moved in silence, their boots sinking into ash and mud. Bodies, American and Japanese, lay scattered through the palm groves. The air stank of cordite and burned oil. Each step felt heavier. Then, through the haze, they saw it, a wrecked Sherman tank, its turret twisted, its hull still smoking. Beside it, a group of Marines crouched behind sandbags, pinned down by gunfire from a ridge. Eli's eyes lit up. Our boys. He waved his rifle, shouting, friendly, coming in. A bullet snapped past his head, slamming into a tree. Guess they didn't hear you, Begay muttered, pulling him down. Smoke hides friend and enemy both. They crawled forward, using the burning wreck as cover. Eli grabbed a discarded bar and laid down suppressing fire while Begay shouted in code. Short, clipped Navajo bursts into a half-functional radio. Then a miracle, a voice answered. This is Baker Company. You're in our sector. Hold position. We're flanking left. Eli grinned through the grime. About damn time. Begay reloaded, his voice steady despite the chaos. We fight until they come. The ridge erupted again with gunfire. Eli leaned over the sandbags, returning fire, his body moving on instinct. Begay knelt beside him, murmuring softly between shots, the same prayer he'd spoken in the cave. And somehow, above the noise and fire, it gave the moment a strange kind of peace. 2 men from different worlds, fighting side by side in the storm. Gunfire tore the air apart. Every burst echoed off the cliffs, mixing with the cries of the wounded. Eli's shoulder burned from a graze, but he didn't stop firing. He and Begay were nearly out of ammunition, pinned behind the shattered tank. Then came the faint rumble of engines, deep, rhythmic, familiar. Tanks. American ones. From the southern slope, Sherman silhouettes appeared through the smoke, their guns roaring as they fired on the ridge. Huh, Eli shouted. That's our boys. We made it. Begay gave a single nod, his expression unreadable. We live another sunrise. But the enemy didn't retreat quietly. Mortar rounds whistled overhead, slamming into the jungle around them. Shrapnel hissed through the trees. One blast threw Eli to the ground. He blinked, dazed, ears ringing, vision swimming in red. Begay was beside him in an instant, dragging him toward a shallow trench. Stay low, Iowa. I'm fine. Eli gasped, though his hands shook. You watch your flank. A Japanese soldier burst from the brush, bayonet raised. Begay turned just in time. Steel flashed, a scuffle, a short cry. Then silence. Begay stood still, blood on his sleeve, the enemy at his feet. Eli crawled to him, chest heaving. You all right? Begay nodded once. He missed, but he hadn't missed entirely. A dark stain spread under Begay's arm. He tried to hide it, pressing his hand against the wound. Eli saw it and swore under his breath. Don't you pull that I'm fine crap on me. Begay's lips curved faintly. We finish fight first. He raised his rifle again. Together, they fired until the ridge went silent. When the smoke cleared, Baker Company was there, Marines shouting, cheering, rushing up the hill. Eli turned to Begay, smiling with exhausted relief. But Begay had already sunk to his knees, eyes closing. No, Eli whispered, catching him. Stay with me, brother. The jungle was quiet again, the battle fading into memory. Eli knelt in the mud, cradling Begay against his chest. The Navajo's breathing was shallow, ragged, his skin slick with sweat and blood. Around them, the battle had moved on, the crack of rifles distant now, replaced by the slow rhythm of the waves against the shore. Stay with me, Begay, Eli said, voice shaking. You hear? You ain't dying on this damned island. Begay's eyes fluttered open. You talk too much, Iowa. he murmured, a faint smile ghosting across his lips. Eli pressed a bandage against the wound. Shut up and save your strength. A medic from Baker Company ran up, sliding to his knees beside them. Got a live one? Eli barked. Yeah, and he's staying that way. The medic worked fast, wrapping gauze, injecting morphine. He's lucky. Missed the artery, but he needs evac now. They loaded Begay onto a stretcher, carrying him through the ruined palm grove toward the beach. Every step felt endless. Eli walked beside him, one hand gripping the stretcher frame. Begay's voice was faint. You go home soon. Eli shook his head. Not without you. Begay's eyes opened just enough to meet his. Home is not where you start, Iowa. It's where your story ends. Eli swallowed hard. Then my story ends when yours does. Begay tried to laugh, but it turned into a weak cough. Stubborn farmer. When they reached the shoreline, the scene was surreal. Smoke curling over shattered landing craft, waves lapping at debris, the horizon glowing with the fires of war. The medic waved for the corpsman. Get him on the boat. Eli turned to Begay, gripping his hand. You hang in there, brother. I'll be right behind you. Begay squeezed weakly, his whisper barely audible. I know. You walk with good spirits. And then they carried him away, leaving Eli alone on the beach, surrounded by the ghosts of men who never left. The sun was setting over Saipan when Eli was called into the command tent. The air smelled of sweat, paper, and burnt canvas. He stood before a folding table where two officers sat, Colonel Reeves and a young intelligence man in a spotless uniform. Corporal Walker, the colonel began, voice gravelly. You were found near Sector 9 with a wounded code talker and one deceased American officer. Care to explain? Eli's jaw tightened. The officer was a traitor, sir. Worked with the Japanese. He cracked part of the Navajo code. The young intel man leaned forward. That's a serious claim. Do you have proof? Eli's hand curled into a fist. Proof blew up with the camp, sir. But we saw it with our own eyes. The man was feeding them our coordinates. The colonel studied him for a long moment. And the code talker? Private Begay. Is he still alive? Yes, sir. Medics took him to the hospital ship. He saved my life. Reeves nodded slowly. Good man. They all are. But until we confirm your story, this stays classified. Understood. Eli felt the heat rise in his chest. With respect, sir, that man tried to sell out our boys. Understood, Corporal? Eli saluted stiffly. Yes, sir. The intel officer scribbled something in his notebook. You'll remain here until debriefing. Then you'll be reassigned. Dismissed. Eli stepped out into the night. The jungle whispered beyond the camp lights, full of ghosts. He stared toward the sea where the hospital ship's faint lights glimmered. He wanted to believe Begay was alive. Needed to. From his pocket, he pulled a scrap of paper, a Navajo phrase Begay had once written for him. He didn't know what it meant, not exactly, but he traced the letters like a prayer, a promise, carved in ink and blood. He folded it carefully and whispered, I'll find you, brother, no matter what it takes. 3 days later, the war had moved inland, but Eli couldn't sit still. He'd been reassigned to logistics, sorting crates and rations, work that kept his hands busy but did nothing to quiet his thoughts. Every night, he looked out at the sea, watching for the hospital ship's return. Then, one morning, a courier came running through camp. Walker, you're wanted at HQ. Eli's stomach turned as he followed him to the same tent as before. Inside waited Colonel Reeves and the young intelligence officer, though this time, the air was heavier, the kind of silence that carried bad news. Corporal, the colonel said softly, we've received a dispatch from the hospital ship Mercy Dawn. He hesitated. Private Begay didn't make it. Eli froze. For a long moment, he couldn't breathe. No, he whispered. That's wrong. He was alive when. He passed last night, Reeves continued. Loss of blood, infection. He never regained full consciousness. Eli turned away, his throat tight. He was more than just another soldier. We know, the colonel said quietly. He asked to send you something before he died. The intelligence man handed Eli a folded, stained envelope. Inside was a single page, written in Begay's careful, looping hand. Half in English, half in Navajo. Iowa, if the code breaks, remember the wind. The words are alive because they belong to no man. When they come for them again, trust the land. It remembers us both. At the bottom, a phrase in Navajo, the same one from the scrap Eli always carried. The intel man frowned. We've tried to translate it. Doesn't match any phrase we know. Eli folded the paper, his voice low. It's not meant for you to understand. He saluted, turned, and walked out into the burning light of morning. For the first time, he felt truly alone. But somewhere deep inside, the wind began to whisper. The next evening, as Saipan's skies dimmed to bruised purple, Eli couldn't shake the sound of the wind. It carried through the broken palms like voices, faint, rhythmic, almost like the cadence of Begay's code calls. It was enough to pull him from camp, rifle slung, boots sinking into the damp earth. He followed the breeze north, toward the cliffs above the sea. The air was thick with salt and the faint scent of smoke. The jungle had gone quiet, too quiet. Then he saw it, a half-collapsed radio post, long abandoned, hidden beneath a ridge. The kind of place Begay would have used for cover. Inside, the remains of a small fire. Empty tins. A Navajo prayer feather tied to a cracked antenna. Eli knelt, heart pounding. "You were here," he whispered. Something caught his eye, carved into the wooden support beam, barely visible. Words, in English this time. "Trust the land." Underneath, a series of markings, lines and dots that looked almost like Morse, but not quite. Eli frowned, tracing them with his thumb. They were coordinates. He pulled out his map, unfolding it against the ground. The marks pointed inland, toward the old caves, the ones where the traitor had died. For a long moment, Eli just stared. Every instinct told him to forget it, to let the war end quietly. But the words on Begay's letter burned in his mind. When they come for the code again, trust the land. He folded the map and stood. "All right, brother," he said softly. "I'm listening." The wind rose again, tugging at the trees, carrying that strange, low hum, like the earth itself was answering. Eli turned toward the jungle and started walking, following the voice of the island into its heart. He didn't know if he was chasing ghosts or destiny. Maybe both. Eli moved through the jungle like a man walking through memory. Every vine, every burned tree stump reminded him of that night. The fire, the traitor, the roar of the cave collapsing. Now it was quiet, still, haunted only by the slow rhythm of the sea. He reached the mouth of the cave at dawn. The air was cooler here, heavy with salt and earth. A thin mist drifted from the entrance like breath. He hesitated for a moment, then ducked inside, rifle slung low, flashlight flickering. The walls were scarred from explosions, blackened but solid. Echoes of dripping water filled the silence. He followed the narrow tunnel deeper until he reached a dead end, a wall of stone half collapsed from the blast. He almost turned back. Then he saw it, faint carvings in the rock, half hidden by soot. Navajo symbols. Eli stepped closer, wiping away dust with his sleeve. The markings weren't random. They told a story, short lines of the sacred code, but twisted, rearranged. Beneath them, one phrase in English. Not all codes are meant to be broken. He froze. It was Begay's handwriting. Eli sank to his knees, running his hand over the carvings. "You left this for me," he whispered. The code symbols began to make sense the longer he looked. Not numbers, not letters, but places. Landmarks. He recognized one, a ridge overlooking the northern shore. Suddenly, the faintest sound echoed behind him, a whisper of boots on stone. Eli spun, rifle raised, heart racing. A figure stood at the entrance, half hidden in the light. American uniform. "Easy, Walker," came a voice he didn't expect to hear again. It was gravelly, weak, but alive. "Begay," Eli breathed. The figure smiled faintly. "Told you. Stubborn farmer." Eli lowered his rifle, tears stinging his eyes. "You're supposed to be dead." Begay chuckled softly. "Maybe I am, but the land said we had one more thing to do." Eli stood frozen, staring at the man who shouldn't have been there. Begay leaned heavily against the stone wall, his uniform torn, his bandages dark with dried blood. His eyes were sunken, but alive, burning with a quiet fire. "You? I saw the report," Eli stammered. "They said you died on the ship." Begay gave a faint, tired smile. Maybe they needed to think that. Sometimes ghosts walk easier than men. Eli shook his head, trying to make sense of it. "You faked your death?" "Not faked," Begay said softly. "Escaped. The code is not safe on the ship. Too many years. Too many eyes who think knowledge means power." He limped deeper into the cave, touching the carvings on the wall with reverence. "These words," he said, "are not just the code. They are a warning. The enemy wasn't the only one trying to steal them. Eli frowned. You mean American command? Begay nodded slowly. Some men saw what the code could do. They wanted to use it after the war for their own wars. That's why I wrote this message here. The land will keep it safe. Eli felt a chill crawl down his spine. You're saying there are men on our side trying to steal the Navajo secrets? Begay looked at him, eyes sharp. They already did. The traitor wasn't working alone. For a long moment, neither man spoke. The weight of it pressed down like stone. Then Begay turned to him. There's a message buried under this rock. My last transmission. It can stop them, but only if we get it to the right hands. Eli tightened his grip on his rifle. Then we'd better move. Begay smiled faintly, his voice a whisper. You still talk too much, Iowa. Eli grinned through the tension. Yeah, but I shoot straight. Together, they began to dig. 2 soldiers, one living, one half-ghost, uncovering the truth the world wasn't meant to know. They dug for nearly an hour, working in silence except for the scrape of metal on stone and the steady sound of Begay's labored breathing. The cave smelled of dust and memory. Finally, Eli's shovel struck something hard. A metal cylinder, about the length of a forearm, buried deep beneath the rock. He pried it free and brushed away the dirt. The surface was stamped with faint marine markings, and something else, Begay's initials, carved by hand. Begay nodded. That's it. The last message. Eli turned it in his hands. What's in it? The final code key, Begay said. The one we never sent. It ties all transmissions together, every operation, every command. If the wrong man deciphers it, he controls every unit that used the code. Eli whistled softly. You mean this thing could rewrite the war? Begay's eyes met his. Or end it. Before Eli could reply, the faint crunch of boots echoed from the tunnel behind them. Voices, American voices. Sir, they went this way. Eli's pulse spiked. How the hell? Begay's face hardened. They tracked the message. We have to move. He grabbed the cylinder, clutching it tight to his chest. Together they bolted through the side tunnel, the light from Eli's flashlight bouncing wildly off the walls. Bullets cracked against stone. They emerged into the open air, sunlight cutting through the mist like blades. Ahead, the cliffs dropped straight into the ocean. Behind them, the shouts grew louder. Eli looked at Begay. We're trapped. Begay shook his head. No, the land always shows a way. He pointed toward a narrow path winding down the cliffside, half hidden by brush. Follow it. As they slipped over the edge, one thought echoed in Eli's mind. A promise, carved in rock and blood. Trust the land. And the land, as always, began to answer. The path down the cliff was little more than a scar in the rock, slick with moss and sea spray. Below, the Pacific crashed against jagged stones, white foam clawing at the base of the cliffs. Begay went first, clutching the metal cylinder tight, his steps slow but steady. Eli followed close behind, his rifle slung and eyes scanning the ridge above. Shouts echoed. The men who had hunted them were near the edge now, rifles glinting in the morning light. A bullet sparked off the rock inches from Eli's boot. Keep moving, he yelled. Begay didn't answer. He was focused, muttering softly in Navajo, each word steady, measured, a prayer against the wind and death. Halfway down, the path narrowed to a ledge barely wide enough for a man's boot. The ocean roared beneath them, wind tearing at their uniforms. Eli's heart thudded like artillery. Then Begay stopped. There, he said, pointing to a small hollow in the rock. Hidden inside was a crevice leading deeper, a way out. Eli glanced back. The pursuers were closing in fast. We can't both fit in there. Begay turned, his expression calm, almost peaceful. Yes, we can, but one must stay behind first. Eli's voice broke. Don't you start that again, Begay. But Begay pressed the cylinder into his hands. The code must live, Iowa. The words are for peace, not power. A gunshot cracked. Begay staggered but stayed upright. He smiled faintly, blood blooming across his chest. Now go. The land will remember me. Begay, Eli shouted, reaching for him. Begay stepped back, just once, into the open air, and was gone. The sea swallowed him whole. Eli stood frozen, wind screaming in his ears, clutching the cylinder like a lifeline. Above, the enemy closed in. Below, the waves called. There was only one choice left. He jumped. The world was water and silence. Eli drifted between dreams and darkness, his body tossed by the sea like driftwood. When he finally washed ashore, it was dawn. Waves hissed around him, soft and endless, and gulls wheeled above the wreckage of war. He rolled onto his back, coughing salt from his lungs. The metal cylinder was still clutched to his chest, the strap wrapped tight around his arm. Somehow, it had stayed with him, Begay's final trust. For a long time he lay there, staring at the pale sky. His body ached, his thoughts blurred by exhaustion and loss. Then he saw it, carved into the wet sand beside him, neat and deliberate, as if placed by invisible hands. Trust the land. He sat up, heart pounding. The words began to fade under the rising tide, but their direction pointed inland, toward the dense line of jungle ahead. Eli rose shakily to his feet and followed. Each step hurt, but he moved with purpose. Begay's voice seemed to walk beside him, carried on the wind, whispering in the old tongue. The jungle opened into a clearing, a quiet plateau overlooking the northern bay. At its center stood a single wooden marker, freshly planted, wrapped with a Navajo prayer feather. Eli knelt before it, eyes burning. "You made it here," he whispered. The ground below was disturbed. Someone had buried something there. He dug with his hands until the soil gave way, revealing a small oilskin pouch. Inside, a folded paper, Begay's handwriting again. "If you found this, Iowa, then the words are safe. Burn the cylinder. Let no man own the voice of our people. The code lives in the wind and in you." Eli stared at the message, trembling. All the pain, the loss, the fury melted into something quieter. He took a deep breath, opened his pack, and struck a match. The flame caught, bright and clean against the dawn. The flame wavered in the wind, small and fragile against the endless horizon. Eli held the match to the cylinder's edge, watching as the papers inside caught fire one by one, curls of black smoke rising like ghosts set free. The metal hissed, cracked, and finally burst open with a soft pop. The wind carried the ashes out over the bay. "Go home," he whispered. "Your words are safe now." For a moment, it was as if the island itself answered, the surf calming, the wind softening, the jungle whispering a prayer in a tongue older than war. Eli closed his eyes. In that silence, he heard Begay's voice again, faint and steady. The words live where men remember them. That is all that matters. He stood there for a long while, watching the ashes drift away, until the light changed and the sound of distant aircraft grew louder. Allied planes. The war was still moving on without him. When he finally walked back to camp, he carried nothing but Begay's feather tied around his dog tags. The officers tried to question him about the code, the traitor, the transmission, but he just shook his head. "There's nothing left," he said. "It's done." Months later, back home in Iowa, Eli stood at the edge of his family's fields. The wind moved through the tall corn like waves, the same sound as the sea. He reached into his pocket and pulled out Begay's final letter, worn, smudged, and irreplaceable. He read it aloud one last time, his voice carried by the wind. "The land remembers us both." Eli smiled through the ache in his chest. "Yeah, brother," he whispered. "It does." Then he turned toward the sunrise, the fields stretching endless before him, golden, peaceful, alive. And somewhere far across the Pacific, the wind whispered back, "The end."